What's up, guys? Welcome back to Sully's English and Education. I have found 20 questions from Reddit about English, how to pronounce things, how to say things, how to describe things, and I'm going to go through those 20 questions that people have about English with you today. So, to get started off, I'd also want to say that there's not always an exact correct way to say everything, or sometimes there may be 2 ways or 3 ways or even an infinite number of ways to say something correctly. But with that being said, let's jump into the first one. You can see here that there is a picture of a woman sitting on top of a man's shoulders. And the question is, how do you call/describe this position? There's a few different ways you could do it. You could say she is riding on his shoulders. The woman is sitting on his shoulders. Any of those would work. She's riding on his shoulders. She's sitting on his shoulders. Next question. How do you pronounce often? Do you pronounce it with a T or without? Again, it depends. You kind of have your choice here because you could really do both of them. Some people pronounce the T and some people don't. A lot of times, the context of the sentence will be able to clarify if you're trying to say this word. So I don't think that this is a word that people are commonly mistaking for different words. So you really shouldn't worry about this too much. I think the correct pronunciation, you should pronounce the T and often. But if you don't, I don't think people are going to misunderstand you if you say often, which some people do say that. Next, you have a comic. In this comic, it says, "Mr. Burke, I am so happy to see you. And also, I lied. I'm the one who filed those 6 complaints with corporate about you." Then you have a circled expression. This is the one they're asking about. It says, "Water under the bridge, pal. Wait, 6. Okay, that hurts, Gary, but it doesn't matter. Get on your feet and fight." Water under the bridge just means that what has happened, and we are going to move on with our lives. Let's forget about it. It's not necessarily saying, "I forgive you." It's kind of like, "I forgive you," but it's more like, let's just move on. Let's just move on. That's really what it's saying. Okay? So this is a meme that someone is wanting to explain. Well, it's actually not really a meme, even though they are calling it a meme. So this is what it says. "New office neighbor has a very sensible office door policy." And I'll read that policy to you now. "Dear visitor, in order to protect my concentration and sanity, I have decided to implement a door policy." This could be read in an if-then style of statements if you wanted to, but they didn't choose to write it this way, but you could. You could read it like, "If the door is open, then you are very welcome to knock and come in." But they didn't write it that way, so they just wrote, "Door open, very welcome to knock and come in. Yes, I would love to have a chat. Door closed." Or again, you could read it as, "If the door is closed, then please do not knock at my door or come in unless you have urgent business. I am extremely easily distracted, and I will talk to you until the end of time," which means forever, "instead of writing my dissertation." So he's saying that he's easily engaged in conversations and it distracts him from his work. And so he closes his door sometimes to get concentration so he can focus on his work. Never come in without knocking. He did leave an asterisk next to urgent business, and then below he gave a list of what is urgent business. So he says, list of things that are urgent business. The building or someone is on fire. You're bringing me coffee. Revolution, or there is a dog. I hope that helps. Next one. Spoken synonyms for complain. Hey guys, I'd like to know what I can use as spoken synonyms for complain. And then you put in parentheses about, because you can complain about things. I looked this up a thesaurus and it gave me a pretty lengthy list, but I'm confused as I don't know which one is for spoken or written English. Since I'm moving to the US soon, words commonly used there would be greatly appreciated. So far, I've got the handle on nag about and whine about. Thank you all very much. So there's a few ways that you could say this depending on how formal you want to be. I actually don't know if there's such a thing as words that are only written. So he made the distinction of written and spoken words. I don't really know of a word that you can only write but not speak. In any case, yes, whining about something is same thing as complaining. Nagging about something is the same thing as complaining. If you want a more informal way of complaining, you can actually say bitch about something. Yes, that is a derogatory word, a curse word, a cuss word, however you want to say it. To bitch about something is also to complain about something.
We have an epidemic in this world. The epidemic I'm talking about is a lot of people bitch about fucking everything. They bitch about not having time. They bitch about their boss. They bitch about their husband. They bitch about their lives. They bitch about everything. Some people even follow me on Instagram and bitch about me fucking cussing.
I guess you could also say yapping about something, but that more just means talking a lot. But again, if you say that someone is yapping about something, it kind of implies that they're complaining or that they're just talking about it too much. But that's the only one I could add to this. I wouldn't use that in a business setting. However, if you're in a friend setting and you say that someone is bitching about something, then that is acceptable. Although possibly rude if you don't know the people. I wouldn't say it to people you don't know, but it is possible. It is a definition of pump and dump. Are all of these synonyms below common? Thanks. It is a definition of pump and dump. Are all these synonyms below common? Thanks. So pump and dump, right? That is an expression to let's read their definition first, and then I'll give you my definition if it's needed. Slang: a situation where a person has sex with a partner on a single occasion without immediate intention of further contact or pursuing a serious relationship. Yes, that's a bit of to me that's a bit of a complicated way of saying it. A simpler way of saying that would be to have sex with someone with no plans of talking to them. You have sex with them and then you don't talk to them. That's a pump and dump. So some of the ones that they wrote here as synonyms, fuck and chuck. I've actually never heard that, but I mean, I get it. Like if I heard that, I would understand it. So yeah, hit it and quit it. I have heard that one. Smash and dash. So to dash is to move quickly. So, and to smash is also to break something, but it can also mean to have sex with someone. So you smash them and then you move quickly. That's kind of funny. One night stand. I don't think one night stand has that intentionality of leaving. It just means that I think, in my opinion, one night stand is simply when you've had sex with someone on the first night that you've met them. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have no intentions of talking to them. Obviously, in many cases, in one night stands, you often don't talk to them again, but I don't think that that's implied when you say one night stand. I've also heard this one's a bit more country and it's or rural American, but I've heard wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, which is just to say you have sex and it's like, thanks, bye. So that's another one as well. But yeah, these are all synonyms and that's what it means. Native speakers. Is it talking to someone or talking with someone? And is it close to someone or close with someone? Which one is correct, or do they have different meanings? And then they write below, example, he's talking to Mike. He's talking with Mike. Are you talking to me? Are you talking with me? Sarah is close to her mom. Sarah is close with her mom. Are you close to your family? Are you close with your family? Does using to and with in these sentences give different meanings and depends on the situation? Thank you in advance. The answer is people use these expressions interchangeably. They choose different prepositions, and the meaning doesn't really change. I will say this, the word to is a little bit more directional. It kind of implies one way. If I were trying to be as inclusive as possible with my language, I would say with, because that implies that we have a two-way conversation. If I'm talking to someone, it's like saying the words are coming from me to them. Although it's still, you could still say I'm talking to someone, and it does mean that you're having a conversation, but talking with doesn't have the directionality. But again, I want to be very clear. People use these interchangeably to mean the exact same thing. So it's not like it's really going to change the meaning if you use one or the other, just to be clear. Use them interchangeably. Why do native speakers never get confused with phrasal verbs like come plus adverb or get plus adverb? And then they've written some examples below. Come along, come by, come out, come up, get in, get off, get out, get on, pop up, pop in, pop out. There are plenty of phrasal verbs like that, and I got so confused by that. Did native speakers ever learn these things on purpose or just memorize them? How can you guys memorize every single meaning? Time. Just time. I don't think we really ever spend time studying these in school and trying to learn, which one means what. It's kind of like you really just learn these things. Like as you use the language a lot and you're speaking with people and you learn through context, you just kind of get through these different things. I could go through and explain every single one of these, but I think it would take a lot of time. But if you have a question about any of them, feel free to put it in the comments below. But the question was, how or why are we able to tell them apart? Time. I mean, we've been speaking English our whole lives. So, of course, we've spoken it longer than you. The pronunciation of the dots that come between software version numbers, such as GIMP 2.10.38, Windows 8.1, Visual Studio 1.92.2. I don't say period. The only reason I said period is so that I don't choose one of the methods of saying it that he's asking about yet, because I wanted to explain that saying dot and saying point are both acceptable. So if you say dot or point, both of those are acceptable, and you can see in the question he or she is asking about that. Let's read what they have to say. I would like to know how native speakers pronounce the dots or points between software version numbers, such as GIMP 2.10.38 or Windows 8.1. See, I changed because you can say both. Visual Studio 1.92.2. I'm not sure whether to say point or dot or whether both are commonly used. Yes, both are commonly used. You could say either one, and you can even find studios, software companies themselves using these, again, interchangeably. It's really your choice. If you prefer the word dot, use dot. If you prefer the word point, use point. But there really is no difference between them. I work with software and I would also like to know what is the most appropriate way or technical way to say this in English. Again, there is no difference. It is simply a matter of preference. Would it be something like Windows 8.1 or Windows 8.1 for Windows 8.1, 8.1. When I'm reading documentation, I can understand what it's about because of the numbers, but when I try to, I don't know, he actually cut off the rest of his sentence. I would have included it. But anyways, yes, dots, points, choose your favorite. When to use clue. Clue is my new English word. Hello, everyone. Let's first clarify something. Clue equals idea, right? Sometimes. When should I use clue instead of idea? Is clue more cool to employ? Clue does not exactly mean idea. Sometimes when someone is failing to understand something, you can see examples of people saying you should get a clue, which means you need to figure it out. You need to improve your understanding. It can be kind of insulting sometimes, but not tremendously so. It's like very mildly insulting to say you should get a clue. I have a clue. No, we don't really say that. You could say I have an idea, but we don't say I have a clue. What a clue actually is it's a piece of evidence. So if you're an investigator or a police officer and you find a shoe print in the ground, right? The shape of someone's shoe stepping on the ground, and you're like, oh, look, a clue. That's a piece of evidence that could help you figure something out. But again, if somebody tells you get a clue, you should get a clue, it's meaning your understanding is not good enough yet. You need to improve your understanding. What does lean the second direction mean? We'll read the example. I heard it immediately. If she hadn't said she'd grown up outside the U.S., I would have assumed she had anyways, or anyway. Or that her parents had, and she grew up in an immigrant community in the U.S. I might have leaned the second direction. Her English is very good. When you have two options, or you have two, in this case, two assumptions, we're talking about assumptions, and you believe one more than the other. So when you choose something, you choose it, right? It's done. If you think of a choice as a direction you can go in, like I can choose this or I could choose that, that's very definitive. But when you lean into a choice, it's when you, I'm not quite choosing this one for sure, but I'm more this choice than I am that choice. I'm closer to this choice than I am that choice. It's to say that you favor an option, but not definitively so. Hope that helps. Help with idiomatic expressions. Is it okay to ask someone, are you still doing theater, if you want to know if they still attend drama classes? Yes, you could say that. Although I want to be very clear, this is not an idiomatic expression. It's not, there's nothing idiomatic about saying, are you still doing theater? It is an activity that you do. So idiomatics would be something like very expressive where you're using a very unrelated metaphor to express an idea. That is not what this is. So yes, is it okay to ask someone, are you still doing theater, if you want to know if they are still attending, or if they still attend drama classes, or if they are still attending drama classes? Yes, you can say it like that. You can ask it like that. Money, round to, round up to. At CVS checkout, CVS is a pharmacy store here in the United States and maybe some other countries as well. At CVS checkout, I was asked to donate to a charity. By the way, don't ever do that. If you don't know why, ask in the comments and I'll explain. I was paying $3.42, so I said, okay, could you round it up to $4? Did I say this right? Or should it have been, okay, could you round to $4? Or, okay, could you round up to $4? So rounding to something and rounding up to something are almost the same thing, except one is more precise. So in rounding, of course, it's when you choose the number that's close. So 4.4 would round to 4, but 4.6 would round to 5, right? So this is like where you get to the closest whole number of something. That's rounding. However, you noticed when I said 4.4, it rounded down to 4, and 4.6 rounded up to 5. When you're donating, there's no way possible to round down. Let's say your expenses is $3.42. You can't pay $3 because your expenses are $3.42. So the only possible rounding is always up if you're going to make a donation. Again, don't. But so in this case, you always are rounding up. Yes, you can also just say round, but it's specifying that we're rounding to the next high number above where we are. Hope that helps. Okay, so we have a push red button. Why don't they use the definitive article? So they're asking why this sign doesn't say push the red button. Really simple. There's different ways of talking. We have our business way of talking that's very formal. It uses very precise language. It's very clear. And then we have our language that we use with our friends, which is very informal. It may be a little bit faster. It may be a little bit less clear and use more figurative language. And then you have like manuals English, which is like when you open up an instruction manual for something, or a book about how to assemble a bed or how to assemble a computer. These are typically not written in perfect grammatical English. It tries to be extremely efficient and say as much context as possible in the fewest amount of words. This is actually very common, especially in instructions. When something is telling you how to do something, or what you're supposed to do, or how to assemble something, you will see English like this all the time, and you will see a lot of words that should probably be there omitted, which means not included. This is perfectly normal. So the sign says, if you need help, push red button. U.S. Border Patrol will arrive in 1 hour. Do not leave this position. Yep, this is completely normal. You still understand the meaning, push red button. It's very clear, and it just has less words. What does then mean? What does then means that come to the end of sentence? So this person's making their progress in English, so we're happy to see that they're here. This is the sentence. I finish work at 5 o'clock, but usually I'm too busy to go home then. In this case, it's meaning at that time. So then, meaning it's almost like a object pronoun referring back to 5 o'clock. I finish work at 5, but usually I'm too busy to go home at 5 o'clock. I finish work at 5 o'clock, but usually I'm too busy to go home at 5 o'clock. You could rewrite that as I finish work at 5 o'clock, but usually I'm too busy to go home then, referring to the time that was previously stated. Then at the end of a sentence can also have a different meaning. If you give a situation and your choice changes or the outcome changes depending on what happens, you could say then to mean in this case or in that case. For example, oh, you're out of lemonade? I'll have tea then. It means I'm at a restaurant, I order lemonade, they don't have lemonade. In this case, I will have tea. Oh, you're out of lemonade? I will have tea then. Meaning in this case. Could I use would, could, might instead of will, can, and may in every case? No. Because will is definitive. If I say I will be there, it means that I'm going to be there. It's going to happen. 100% certain. If I say would, I would be there. It's like saying I would do it. It's possible, but, and usually when you see I would, but, let me back up. If you say I would do something, it's usually followed by but, and then you're explaining why you're not going to do that. So no, the short answer is no, you cannot use these interchangeably. It does change the meaning in most cases. Here's another meme, them Americans. And they abbreviated further, them Americans. This is very Southern English. It's very country, rural English to pronounce it like that. That's the joke. That's the idea. Americans, I can drive for 7 hours one way, which means in one direction, and still be in the same state. We have 50 states, pieces of our country, and then Canadians patting the head, basically suggesting that the states in Canada are bigger. That's the joke. Them is improper English, but in a lot of places, people either intentionally or unintentionally use improper English. Maybe it's part of the joke. Maybe it's part of their dialect from where they're from. But yes, it is incorrect, but it's not completely uncommon to hear it. It's more like saying those Americans, but they're saying them Americans. Yeah, it's not correct, but you might see it. What is coworker music? I have no idea. I've never heard of that. Just because someone is a native English speaker doesn't mean that they've heard every single word and every single invented idea that anyone has ever expressed in English. I have no idea what coworker music is. If you do know what coworker music is, please feel free to share it below in the comments for everybody else. Don't mind if I do. Is this phrase close to I appreciate it or I have no problem with it? I'll accept it. So basically, I want to know if it has meaning of slight joy. It does have meaning of slight joy. It's like when someone offers you something and you want to say yes, but in a slightly more formal, slightly more enthusiastic way. So you're expressing like, oh, I'm really happy to say yes. Don't mind if I do. Usually it refers to food. I feel like in most cases it's when people offer food or wine or something and they say, hi, would you like, let's say you're at a cocktail party and all the food and stuff is free and someone says, would you like a glass of champagne? Someone might say, don't mind if I do. And it just means, oh, yes, thank you very much. It's a enthusiastic, slightly formal sounding yes. Okay. Is South Park hard to understand? I started watching it a few days ago. I can get most of what they speak, but I miss some expressions here and there due to the fast-paced speech or some new slang words, which I hadn't seen before. I would say I comprehend 80 to 85% of the show. Is it a good number for someone who aims to reach C1 by the end of the year? Yeah, South Park is not easy to understand. It is kind of more complicated English. It's a lot of slang, and of course they're using weird languages and stuff like.
Oh, I wonder what Stan got me for my birthday party. Oh, look, a blue Mega Man.
Like Cartman has a weird voice. If you've never seen the show before, it's a comedy. It's very satire. And yes, I would say it's probably one of the more difficult shows to understand if you are not a native English speaker. I would not recommend it if you're trying to learn English unless you have a very advanced level. So yes, South Park is hard to understand, in my opinion. That concludes all of the questions for today. I hope you guys had fun tagging along for these questions. If you guys have any that you want me to answer, feel free to pop them in the comments below. I'll be doing this again soon, and I look forward to seeing y'all on the next episode. Peace.